Hey everyone, it's Alex, and today I'm here with a book review for The Wrong Side of Right by Jenn Thorne. This is a young adult contemporary novel about a girl named Kate who's recently been orphaned by the loss of her mother. She's never known her father, so she's incredibly surprised when a senator who is currently running for president shows up and announces that he's her father. Kate gets invited onto the campaign and deals with a lot of issues both with her new family and with the press. I gave this book 4 stars and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was kind of intrigued by this book the moment I saw the premise just because I do like stories about politics kind of from a side point of view that aren't directly about the politics, but everything in their lives is impacted, politically speaking. It's one of the reasons The President's Daughter by Ellen Emerson White is one of my favorite books ever, one of my favorite series ever, and a lot of what I adore about that series is present in this book as well. But I just knew from the moment I read about it that I wanted to pick it up, and the libraries were closed, and I couldn't afford to buy the book from the bookstore, so I got the ebook from the library, and this is my first ever ebook. It was an interesting experience in that it read just like a normal book. I don't know what else I was expecting. It's just an ebook. It's just the text of the book online. I still do prefer print format, but it was nice to be able to read at night without just injuring myself with a book light. But I think it is a testament to how much I wanted to read this book that I read my first ever ebook. It was really wonderful. It was honestly exactly what I wanted it to be. It was light and fluffy and cute in all the right ways, but there was also enough substance and enough serious issues in this book that it had a real depth to it, that it had gravitas, and really there were stakes in this book. Even though you knew it was going to be kind of okay by the end in some regard, there were still stakes, and there were still people's lives who were going to be very heavily impacted, and I really enjoyed it. So let's get into some of my more specific thoughts. I had two main critiques that kept this at 4 stars for me and kind of kept it out the 5-star range. It was very solidly 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think it was wonderful. Exactly what I wanted it to be, but not the most amazing thing. And honestly, I don't know how much of an impact this book is going to have and how much staying power it will have, because I do think it's one that will fade rather quickly in the coming weeks. But my two major critiques, the first is the politics of it. This book isn't about politics, it's just about Kate's experience with her newly acquired father and his wife and their kids, and her experiences with the press and what that's like. And there is some politics, but it's kind of secondhand, it's not directly about the politics in the story. However, the politics that were there, I felt were very oversimplified, and I wasn't a big fan of that, because I have read young adult books before that deal with politics and deal with them in a very complex way. You can write for a younger audience without oversimplifying big issues. And in this book, there were a couple big major cases of the politics being oversimplified. One being about immigration. Kate's father is the Republican candidate for presidency, and he has a very hard line on immigration, which you know going in. But Kate also has friends who are undocumented, who are here illegally, and that's something that's really important to her, and it's an issue that hits really close to home. And she and her father kind of butt heads and deal with it in ways that really do take an overly simplistic approach. I don't want to explain the exact situation, because that does get into the territory of spoilers, but it is kind of addressed as a black and white issue in regards to both her and her father. And her father at times seems kind of surprised by her experiences with undocumented immigrants, and it just kind of seems like he is a candidate for president. He's been a career politician in politics literally his entire life. This is his whole career. This is who he is. And he seems surprised by some of the things that Kate tells him about immigration and her undocumented friends. And it just kind of seems like he shouldn't be surprised. At that point, even if you disagree with it, even if you take a very hard line on immigration, I would expect any political candidate on any issue to be firm enough in their beliefs that they've heard sob stories before, and a single sob story isn't going to sway them. And it just seemed very oversimplified in this book, and I wasn't a big fan of that. I really wish, just in general, the politics had been handled with more depth and nuance, because I really do believe they should have, if they were going to be that impactful on the story. And also, I felt that way with some of the other issues that weren't political as well. Some of the conflict between Kate and her father, just in general, it seemed way too easily resolved. But again, I think with this kind of book, it's going to have a relatively happy ending, and you know that going in because that's the kind of book it is, and that's the kind of book it's marketed as. It's meant to be like cute and sweet and kind of happy making, and I really did like that. But I do think it could have had more depth in the resolutions of it. My other main issue was just that the book seemed very focused on the literal plot of the story. Like it was point A, point B, point C, all the way through the book, and it didn't leave a lot of room for growth outside of the literal plot points of the story. Like you didn't get to see a lot of like the outside world, like Kate's life beforehand and Kate's life after, and like just what's going on in her world. It's like this character is introduced when this character is immediately important, and it's not a lot of, it doesn't allow for a whole lot of growth in between. And I do think it could have been a lot more full than it actually was, and it did feel a little bit bare bones, just because it was very much like, if this doesn't relate directly to the plot, it's not a part of the story, and it doesn't become a part of the story until it does directly relate to the plot. So of course the book got better as it went along, because you learned all these different things that kind of built on itself, but for the first half of the book, it did feel very bare bones, and I think she could have added just like a little bit more to it. But beyond that, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was wonderfully done, and it was exactly what I wanted. Like, the right amount of gravitas, the right amount of happy, just like, I read this in one night, and I got through it so quickly, and it made me so happy, and I was just so incredibly pleased by that. Like, I love books about kids and politics, like I mentioned at the beginning, and I love seeing how being in the political sphere really impacts their lives. Like, the politics of it, yes, but even more than the politics, just like being in the media, like how that affects everything. Because like what school you go to matters, politically speaking. The clothes you wear matter, the friends you have matter, and it's like seeing that really impact their lives, I think, is something that I really enjoy seeing in fiction. And again, like I said earlier, the President's Daughter series by Ellen Emerson White, I love that for that reason, because it's so wonderfully done, and there were a lot of parallels in this book. Like, very different books, I'm not comparing them on any other spectrum, but just like the way kids who have very prominent political figures have to deal with politics, I really enjoyed. And in this book in particular, Kate hasn't grown up with this. This is all new to her. She's been, a nobody in the eyes of the world for so many years. And now suddenly, like, there are news articles in the New York Times specifically about her, with pictures of her, and you really get to see her learning process, and I loved that. Also, another thing I really, really enjoyed was Kate's relationship with her stepmother. Kate's stepmother was actually married to Kate's father when Kate was born. It was an affair he had with an intern during a political campaign. And that could bring up a lot of negativity in Kate and Meg's relationship. But instead, Thorne decided to go a different route. And she actually had a really caring relationship between Meg and Kate. And I love that because it was so wonderfully done. And you can see that there's a lot of tension in their relationship, especially early on. And there are a lot of things that make them uncomfortable about each other. But a lot of the book is really about them growing together and being in a relationship together, like as stepmother and stepchild in a way, and parent and child. Like, they really become very close, and it's a wonderful relationship to see in a story. And it was just like really heartwarming, because there are a lot of issues with Kate's father in this book. Like, he's not always the most present, but you do get to see a lot of Meg, and I really, really loved that. The ending of this book did have me tearing up. It was a little bit cheap in some regards, just because I do think a lot of the problems in this were oversimplified, and like they were solved a lot by just like a conversation where everyone talks about their feelings and then like don't actually fix the problems that cause those negative feelings. But this was like this was a heartfelt story. It was lovely. It was very, very happy making, and it really did touch me. It was just kind of exactly what I wanted. And if you do like books like this, if this sounds like your kind of thing, I would highly recommend picking it up, because I loved it so much, and it was such a worthwhile night of reading, because I can't remember the last time I just sat down and read a whole book in one night, and this was perfect for where I am right now and just my mood, and it was the absolute comfort read for me. I would highly, highly recommend. Let me know down below if you've read The Wrong Side of Right and what you thought of it if you have, and also let me know if you've read any of Thorne's other books, because after reading this, I'm very much intrigued, just based on how much I enjoyed this one. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.